It's time to figure out who the Red Sox are going to trade for 3 months too early. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin. This is actually a two-part video. Because of where the Red Sox are at trade-wise in their funky situation that's going on, you guys thought it would be a good idea to break the off-season prediction video up into two parts. That's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at where the Red Sox are at trade position-wise and take a look at some of the possible trades the Red Sox could make, who the Red Sox could trade, and who the Red Sox could trade for. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. So the first trade I could see the Red Sox making is actually one we did talk about in the first part of this video, and it's not exactly the fanciest trade in the entire world. It's simply just a swapping of salaries, but it could work out for both sides. And the trade we are talking about here is the Red Sox swapping the salary of Masataka Yoshida for the salary of Seattle's Luis Castillo. Currently, Masataka Yoshida is making $18 million a year on the luxury tax for the next 3 seasons, whereas Luis Castillo is making $21.6 million towards the luxury tax over the next 3 years, with a vesting option for 2028. The Mariners have one of the best rotations in baseball, but one of the worst offenses in baseball. The Red Sox have had, for the most part, one of the best offenses in baseball, but one of the worst pitching rotations in the entire sport. It kind of lines up perfectly. On top of that, it allows the Seattle Mariners to take off some of the salary on their budget and go after bigger names that are going to impact this team, while also getting a guy who immediately helps with their biggest problem, and that is their strikeout rate. For the Red Sox, this becomes a really interesting option because it does two things. The first one is obviously get you a mid to top rotation pitcher. Career-wise, Luis Castillo has a sub-4 ERA, 3.56 ERA in 8 seasons, a 3.71 FIP, and a 1.76 WHIP for a 1.20 ERA plus, about 20% better than the average pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's also a middle of the rotation guy who's a workhorse for any team he's a part of. He has thrown over 150 innings in 6 of his 8 seasons, and one of the ones in which he didn't throw over 150 innings in was 2020, where no one was able to throw over 150 innings, right? This dude is born to be a guy who's going to give you plus statistics basically every 5 days over the course of 162, and that's a really big thing for the Red Sox. They don't really have anybody who's scheduled to do that. Lucas Giolito is coming back next season, and he could be a guy who could do that, but he's more of a mid to back rotation arm at his probably mid level that he might be at. Luis Castillo does it at a higher level. On top of that, it also allows the Boston Red Sox to do something very important, and that is create versatility in their DH position. Right now, it's Masa or nobody, right? With him gone, and this isn't me saying I want Masa gone, but it would do this for this Red Sox team. It would allow you to turn that role into a rotating cast of characters, which in turn would allow you to add players like Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer to this 26-man roster, while also being able to get them almost every day playing time. You could make that DH position a once-a-week spot where you cycle in through the outfielders, you cycle in through the infielders, and you get everybody off their feet for a game or two during the week, which could end up also saving the Red Sox some injury problems, which, as we know, has been a big issue for this team over the past. So in my opinion, this would be probably a pretty decent idea for the Boston Red Sox to take a look at. Now, the problem is going to be, are the Seattle Mariners a team that is going to be willing to take on Masataka Yoshida, a very one-dimensional player, or probably two-dimensional? He doesn't strike out a ton, makes pretty decent contact, and can hit for power in certain spurges, but he's also not going to be able to play the field all that often. Are they willing to have a everyday DH? That's the big question. On top of that, are they willing to give up Luis Castillo for that kind of guy? It would save them some money. According to baseball trade values, again, I always say this, it's not the end-all be-all, it's a good starting point. Luis Castillo is currently much more valuable than Masa. My question is, how do the Red Sox sweeten this deal? Can they take on some more money of Masa's contract, and instead of taking on $4.6 million, maybe they take on $10 million a year for Luis Castillo, and that would certainly sweeten the deal as well. You could always throw another prospect in there too, but I do think they're going to be looking at Luis Castillo, and I definitely do think they're going to be looking to move Masataka Yoshida. Pardon the interruption, folks. I just wanted to take a second and say if you are enjoying the first part of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just helps these videos out a ton. It's the best way you can let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. I apologize for the interruption. Let's get back to the video. Okay, but let's say the Red Sox don't want to part with Masataka Yoshida. They find him as a valuable member of this team. More realistically, they don't want to take on more money than they're already taking on with Masataka Yoshida, and he ends up staying with this team. Where do they go from there? Well, smart move would go towards a controllable piece, right? Someone who's not going to cost a ton, someone who's got some years of control under their belt, and that would bring us to the south side of Chicago for a man named Garrett Crochet. Now, Crochet is a stud young pitcher with a ton of potential. He just hasn't reached that potential yet, right? This season, he had one of the best first halves in the entire sport, but the problem is he's fallen off quite a bit in the second half this season. Many people are assuming that is due to arm fatigue. The Chicago White Sox have him on an innings limit, which pretty key indication they're trying to save him from arm fatigue. A big reason for that is because of his lengthy injury history, preventing him from throwing over 56 innings at the big league level at any point over the last couple of years. However, again, the potential there is huge, and it's pretty much understood that the Chicago White Sox, at the very least, are going to be dangling Garrett Crochet on the trade market this offseason. Now, if they aren't looking to trade Masa, okay, what if they want to go a different route? What if they want to trade Wilyer Abreu to get one of these big time sort of top of the line potential starting pitchers? This would, one, allow the Red Sox to be able to fit the number one prospect in baseball, according to Baseball America, into their outfield in an everyday role. It also allows them to trade from a place of wealth without depleting it as well, and this could technically work. It may take a little bit more than Wilyer Abreu to get it done, but not much. I don't want to lose Wilyer Abreu, but at the same time too, you have to find a way to fit Roman Anthony on this roster, and if it's not in a rotating DH in the outfield type role, maybe it's in a full-time right field role instead of Wilyer Abreu. Now, there are a couple things that make me really nervous about Garrett Crochet. He seems to be a consensus guy that everyone wants them to pick up, but at the same time too, Garrett Crochet this season at the deadline said publicly, hey, I will not pitch for a team in the postseason unless I get an extension. What's that going to look like if he's traded in the offseason? On top of that, we mentioned his injury history, right? That makes me really nervous. Giving up a valuable prospect like Wilyer, who's most likely going to finish at the bare minimum in the top 5 of Rookie of the Year voting. He should really be considered for Rookie of the Year. And 3, I don't know what that fatigue is going to look like next year. Next year's the year you want to get this team to being a consistent competitor in Major League Baseball. If you have your big time starting pitcher fall apart in the second half like he did this season, that's going to be a problem. Now, obviously, the goal this year is to get him used to a full season's worth of workload, and hopefully that works out, but you just simply don't know until that comes. So I would be a little bit nervous about Garrett Crochet. Obviously, I would be pumped if they ended up actually getting him, but he does definitely make me nervous. One name I would also look at if the Red Sox want to go the route of maybe a controllable young starting pitcher that doesn't cost as much as some of these other guys is the name Bobby Miller from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, Bobby has been flat out terrible this season at the Major League level, just like really bad. Walks have been an issue. Home runs have been an issue. But again, the potential there is huge. He was a top 100 prospect back in 2022. He was a top 25 prospect in 2023. And his first season in the big leagues was really, really solid. If the Red Sox feel as though this is a guy that they believe can be impactful right away, something that they see that they could tweak, that would be a really good success story for this Red Sox team. It would also be somebody that you could get for just Wilyer Abreu if that's the route you wanted to go. However, there is one more scenario here, and that is that the Boston Red Sox put their cards on the table. They say, hey, this is the offseason, we make a big trade. So what would that look like? In my opinion, if the Red Sox really want to make a big splash this offseason and really want to make a big deal, a guy, like I'm talking top 25 prospect moving type deal, I think the only logical place to go would be back to the Seattle Mariners. They want impactful bats. The Red Sox have a couple of really potential impactful bats right there on the verge of Major League Baseball, and a guy like Bryce Miller would be electric in a Red Sox uniform. He was electric this season for the Mariners. He has a you 3.18 ERA, a 3.68 FIP, and a 117 ERA plus, 17% above league average production, as well as a below 1 WHIP at 0.992. Now, there are two ways the Red Sox could go about this. The first one is to part with one of their Fab Four, to say, okay, we have four really great guys in the Red Sox farm system. We're talking top 25 prospects in the entire sport. What are the odds that all of these guys end up being super impactful players at the major league level? They have to take a look at that, and if they are willing to take that risk and say, okay, we are going to put our money in the mouths of three of these guys instead of all four of these guys, someone like Marcelo Meyer could get the job done and get Bryce Miller to the Boston Red Sox. Now, again, I don't want them to trade Marcelo. I actually think Marcelo, if he could stay healthy, has highest floors and ceilings of these four at the big league level. But at the same time, too, if you're going to get risky, you got to get really risky. The other way the Red Sox could do this is get risky in a different way, and that is send off some of your young talent at the major league level. Guys like Wilyer Abreu, David Hamilton, and Cutter Crawford could be answers to that problem, while also not having to give up some of your top four guys. And technically, again, based on baseball trade values, it would allow you to do that. And I do think it is possible Seattle Mariners are interested in a deal that would bring Wilyer Abreu, David Hamilton, and Cutter Crawford, or a combination of those guys, to Seattle. I couldn't even imagine Cutter Crawford in Seattle's pitching lab. Wilyer gives them pretty immediate impact bat at the big league level, right? That could be something that they are interested in. I think overall, when you're taking a look at what I've put out on the table for you, it's a really interesting scenario the Red Sox are in. In terms of predictions, it's really hard to make because there's a million different ways trades can go. There's a million different partners and a bunch of guys that we don't even know are targets for the Red Sox. The Red Sox are probably targeting already headed into this offseason. But I do think in terms of predictions, there's a couple of things I'm going to predict. The first is that I do think that Massa and Wilyer are the names that are dangled the most in terms of trade rumors. I think those are the guys that the Red Sox try to part ways with to get this young core up to the major league level. Do I like it? No. Do I think it's a necessary evil? It quite possibly could be. The other thing I want to say is that I do want you guys to pay attention to names like David Hamilton, Cutter Crawford, and some of those sort of mid-level potential impact, a little bit older type prospects and players that the Red Sox could look to move before they dip into their big four. But I do think that this is the offseason where if the Red Sox want to make a splash, to do that, right? These are the guys that are trying to make their way to Major League Baseball. You have a wealth of talent in terms of controllable talent at both the big league level and the minor league level. The Red Sox need to come into 2025 with a different game plan, and this might be the way that they are able to do that. And I think most people are assuming this is the way that they are going to do that. The other thing I wanted to point out is there is a very obvious theme in this video, and that is the Red Sox trading for a starting pitcher. That should be the theme of this entire offseason: getting pitching, getting reliable, potential, or already star-studded pitching on this Red Sox team totally transforms them, right? If you come into 25 with a set, very solid rotation, a set, very solid bullpen, you're talking about a pretty immediate contender in Major League Baseball with where the Red Sox offense and position player pool is at. So overall predictions, I think they do make some trades this offseason. I think it's focused on starting pitching, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? What do you think the Red Sox do this offseason trade-wise? Who do you think's on the block? Who do you think are their big targets? Let me know all your thoughts on the trade potentials in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Don't forget, if you made it to the end here and you want to listen instead of watch these videos going forward, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for taking a second and clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.